A month or two ago, we had a woman visit Thacker Pass, or Peehee Mu'huh, who has a lot of experience in wild tending and wild foods. And she shared her experience of talking with different Paiute and Shoshone elders around the Great Basin and Mojave Desert region, and learning some of their traditional ways around not only gathering wild foods, but actually propagating and wild tending wild foods. And what she explained to us is that in these dry, arid regions, the traditional way that that food would be cultivated, people engaging in a form of horticulture, essentially, would be up on these hillsides. So I'm on the mountain right now. Camp is down here, and this is the proposed mine site. The open pit might actually reach up to where we're standing right now. I'm not exactly sure of the boundary. It'll either reach here or just slightly down the hill from us. But this site right here is this rock pile on the hillside. And what this woman explained to us is that these areas, they create a lot of shade and they trap water. When it rains, when the snow falls and begins to melt in the spring, these areas are especially wet. And especially right below these rocky areas, it creates sort of a little lens, a small little hanging aquifer that's wetter, and it's got a better microclimate for growing many plants. And so what she explained is that traditionally Paiute and Shoshone people would bring in seeds, they would weed, they would essentially cultivate these spaces. And so all along these mountains and hillsides where you see these rocky areas, these are actually ancient gardens. And this has been something I actually noticed before I heard this story, before I spoke with this woman. When you walk around these areas, especially in the spring and early summer, what you notice is that the snow melts out faster here because you've got a slightly warmer microclimate in the cold season. And then the moisture lasts longer here. And you actually see a different diversity of plants, including a much higher abundance of first food plants in these areas right below and adjacent to these rock piles and these sort of rock slides, these little lines like this. She explained that, one of the traditional ways that elders and people would cultivate foods is that they would arrange rocks in such a way that root crops, root plants would grow, rather than growing down deep into the soil. They would arrange rocks and bring in seeds and place rocks in such a way that the roots would grow sideways through the soil. And what that meant is that oftentimes, instead of digging down 3 feet into the soil, spending a lot of energy to get a root, you could just dig very shallow and grab the root. And in some cases, you could even just grab a flat rock, flip it up, and pull out the root with essentially no work required whatsoever. So, there's sort of a mythology that agriculture was invented at a certain time in Mesopotamia and spread outwards across the world. And if you're defining agriculture as the growing of annual monocrops in an ecologically destructive way, then that's absolutely true. This is not agriculture in that sense. It's horticulture, it's gardening, it's wild tending, it's a different process. And I think I wanted to share this story because it's important for people to recognize that, the ancient peoples of this area may not have left behind pyramids or earth mounds or different things like that. What they did leave behind, what is a lasting legacy that can be seen on the landscape, is these ancient gardens on the mountainsides. I'm not an expert in this topic, so if folks know more, feel free to correct me, drop some information in the comments, let me know what's really going on here. I'm very curious to learn more, but I think it's very important that people recognize that these are not just empty places that were not impacted by humans in any way. This is a landscape that has been formed and evolved in relationship with human beings for a long, long time. And so when these mining companies come in and want to destroy places like this, want to blow up mountainsides like this, they're actually destroying a really ancient cultural heritage and a cultural site that may not be recognizable to those who don't have the knowledge, the traditional knowledge, the botanical knowledge to understand what a place like this actually represents.